Okay, great. It looks like we are live on air now. My name is Nikki Jefford. I am your host, and I will be interviewing Em Eldridge, audiobook narrator. And first of all, I would like to introduce myself in case you're not familiar with my work. I write new adult and young adult for mature teens and older paranormal fiction, the Spellbound trilogy, and Aurora Sky Vampire Hunter series. The first book of which was made into an audiobook released this month on iTunes, Audible, and Amazon. And the other thing I wanted to mention during the broadcast today is that you can have a chance to win an audiobook copy of Aurora Sky. All you have to do is ask a question or make a comment at any time on this event page. And my volunteer, Shelly Custer, will be taking down your names as you comment, and at the end, she will randomly draw someone, and I will announce that. So the only thing with that is you need to be present to win. So make sure to ask those questions at any time. I believe I turned on the Q&A option on the side, so you can go ahead and put those there at any time or at the end. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Em Eldridge. She is a voice actress and audiobook narrator. She has narrated over 25 books. In addition to voice acting, she plays the violin, is a classical singer, and she also is an award-winning filmmaker and screenwriter, which is very cool. So welcome, Em, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Especially, I found out that Em is actually moving tomorrow, so that's really cool for her to join us today. And now, my first question, to begin with, I was going to ask if you could tell us a little more about yourself and how you got into narrating.
Well, I used to read the Harry Potter books out loud to my little sister back in the 5th grade, back before they were even movies, and I just wanted her to get how awesome they were and how much I loved them. So I started reading them to her. And actually, we still do that. And she is turning 20, but every time I go home, I read her the Harry Potter books. And I absolutely love doing that. I would listen to the actors and record myself and try to sound just like Daniel Radcliffe or whatever. And my mom was like, you should do that as a living. And I was like, that's not a real job, is it? No. So I went to college. And then one day I woke up and I was like, you know what? I don't like what I'm doing, which is sound editing. It's kind of boring. So I decided, hey, I'm going to start being a voice actress. Who knows? And so I found ACX, which is this great website that Amazon has. And that's how I get all my audiobook jobs. It's like a free sign up, and you just upload your stuff. It's really easy. And so I just got started doing that, and I did it while I was in college, and I just graduated about a year ago. And moved out to LA, got some training, and I stay at home and record in my closet. So that's how I got started.
That's really cool. I really loved the part about you reading Harry Potter out loud to your sibling. I think that's great. That's actually, when I think about it, that's what got me interested in fantasy stories, is because my aunt used to read out loud to my cousins and I. So that is a great gift, I think, to pass on to the younger generation. I wanted to ask you, I saw that you are an Audible Approved Producer, and I was just wondering if you could explain to us what that means.
Well, they usually want narrators to apply for that when they've done 25 titles or more. And so as soon as I hit the 25 mark, I sent all my stuff in. I just sent in all my samples that I had, waited a few weeks, and they got back to me. And that just means that they like the way your studio sounds. It's always consistent. And they like your style, and that they can recommend you to any author. So it gives you just a little bit more clout on ACX.
Definitely. And my next question is, how do you prepare to read a book? What kind of preparation? Do you read the book ahead of time? Do you read it chapter by chapter ahead of time? Do you make character sheets?
Mm-hmm.
What's your process?
I usually skim the book don't read it outright. But you just want to make sure that there's like no surprises. Like you get to the end of the book and it's like the guy was Irish the whole time, which I doubt would ever happen. But just to be safe, it's good to like go through. Yeah, make a list of all the major characters and figure out what they would sound like how I would think they would sound. And it's usually pretty much what the author had in mind, and if it's not, they tell me. So yeah, just make a list and characterize them.
That makes me think of another question. Well, first of all, a comment, which was I wasn't even thinking about the different characters and one of them in particular having a British accent until I was listening to your recording of Aurora Sky Vampire Hunter. And I loved the British accent you did, not only British accent, but a male British accent. I was very impressed. And I wanted to ask if that's something you've practiced before, practiced ahead of time, and what other accents you are able to do.
Well, like I said, I read Harry Potter, so I have like male British guy pretty much down.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I can just whip that one out anytime. I've had to do French, and Southern is my favorite to do because I'm from Texas and I was born in North Carolina, and it's just so easy to like slip into that little drawl. And so to do a whole book like that is kind of fun and freeing because I usually put on this California accent. It's not even my accent. So it's fun to slip back into that sometimes. But yeah, really just French and British. The last book I did, everybody was British except for the main character. And so it was nice to have that Harry Potter backing because there's so many different characters. I had to like make different voices for them, and there's like the standard London accent, which is what I gave Joss. That's like my standard Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe kind of voice. And then there's also like the Cockney or like, different sorts of British accents. So I think my Harry Potter training prepared me well.
Wow. I actually wanted to try and play a clip. I don't know if I'm going to feedback, so I'm going to play a very quick clip of you doing Joss's British accent. So bear with me, everyone. Let's just give this a go. Let's be adventurous. And here it goes. So I hope that this will pick up.
Faye's friend sneered. When he spoke, he sounded all snotty British. It's not enough that you're hanging out with those adolescent twats at Denali. Now you're consorting with a girl who is clearly insane.
Okay, so I'm going to stop there because I'm not sure if that picked up. I was curious also to know just more about the narrating process in terms of how long can a person read? Like you, how long can you read at one given time before your voice gives out or you need to take a break because a lot of energy has to go into that. I mean, you're not just reading out loud, you're putting accents and emotion and pacing. How does that work?
Well, my stamina has definitely increased from when I started because it is draining, and especially at the beginning, I would be like putting my soul, just like everything I had, all of my energy, just expending it all at once, and I would just be out of breath, so tired. But now I've worked my way up. I can read pretty much. I mean, I have 3 roommates, so whenever I get the chance. But usually about from like 9 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock when everybody starts to get home, I kind of stop. And I have to take a lot of breaks. Like every 2 pages, I'll go get a glass of water and just down it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's pretty consistent, like all throughout the day. Every like 15 minutes or so, I'll take a drink of water and go to the bathroom, get a snack. But I'm in there pretty much all day, all the work day.
And do you do the editing as well? And can you tell us like how many hours it takes per finished recorded hour? Like how many hours go into that 1 hour that people are listening to on the audiobook?
I'd say it's about 30 minutes, like a half an hour for a full hour. Because, I mean, I had a really great teacher here in LA, and he taught me like a way to kind of expedite that process. Because used to, I would just listen to the whole thing. So it would take me more than when I'd recorded. And I would like pick out my favorite takes, But nowadays, I have this really fast process. I just edit it backwards, and like cut and paste over what I've already done. So it only takes about half an hour. Not too bad.
Oh, that's actually really good. I've heard things like it can take 4 hours per finished recorded hour, which sounds like, I mean, that takes a long time. That's very a big commitment to finish an audiobook.
Oh, yeah.
Um, the other thing I wanted to ask is, how do you go about choosing projects? Like the books that you choose to read. Do you have favorite genres that you prefer to read in, and which ones and why?
I definitely prefer to read sci-fi fantasy because that's my life. That's where my heart is. I just love those stories, and especially if like the heroine is very no nonsense, very pragmatic and unemotional. That's kind of who I am. So I love it when the girls aren't like weepy. And I've had to read some of those, and it just gets kind of wearing. Um, and I've had to pass on projects where, you know, the authors haven't proofread or whatever, and I'm like, you're not paying me to be a proofreader. But I've had the great fortune to read a lot of great books that I really love.
That makes me actually think of a new question, which is, do you ever alter the story like slightly? If, you know, when you're speaking, a lot of times, I mean, when you're writing, you kind of type things out and they sound okay in your head as you're typing, but then if you actually go to read it out loud, you're like, wow, these two words would have sounded better if I'd switched them or something. Like, do you take liberties to do a little bit about that? Does it just kind of happen as you're reading sometimes?
If it's like an outright grammatical mistake, I'll catch it and I'll read something else usually. But if it's just like awkward wording, I try to make it work. Unless I do something unintentionally and the author doesn't catch it, then it must have been fine. But yeah, I don't really try to change anything. I don't want the author to be mad.
Okay. That all kind of leads me to, like, what are some of the biggest challenges of narrating?
Definitely learning to trust your choices that you make, because you're just making acting decisions really as you're reading along. And like I've been reading out loud for so long that my eye kind of knows what's going to happen next. Like out of the peripheral of my vision, I'm reading the next line. I see who's going to be talking next. Prepare. You have to prepare in that split second, like how that character is going to react, where they're coming from, their motivation for saying this, and their attitude while they're saying it. And it took me a while to get into the flow of that, because at the beginning I was like, okay, I'm going to read this 5 different ways, and later I'll listen to all of them and pick out what sounds the best, and if I don't like any of those, I'll go back in and record again. And that took me forever, and I wasted so much time. So just learning to trust yourself and say, yes, I made the right choice, and if I didn't make the right choice the first time, I made it the second time, and then that's it. I leave it alone.
How about what you enjoy most about voice acting? Like, what is it that you love most about what you're doing with audiobooks?
I love when I'm reading something that's really well read and the writing's not awkward and I don't have to work to make it sound natural, because sometimes I'm like, nobody talks like this. I'm going to have to really finagle my way into this dialogue to make it sound like natural. So when the writing just flows and everything is just how people would normally talk, and I'm just going along and I just kind of lose myself in the moment, and I forget about how hot it is in my closet, or the planes going overhead, or the motorcycles on the street, or my roommates in the next room. Like, I just forget about all the stresses, and I'm lost in the story. That's my favorite part.
Okay, I'm mega impressed that you are recording roommates and like in the city of LA.
It's loud.
Yeah, that seems like that would actually be a big editing challenge. Like, is that back noise stuff that picks up? Do you have to edit all of
Yeah, well, mostly I just stop my mic whenever the planes go overhead, take a few breaths, like try not to stress out. And So it's usually out of the track before I edit, but I run it through like a denoising to get all that background stuff out. It does add a little bit of time. And I'm moving somewhere quieter, so yay.
That'll be great for narrating. How many books do you plan to narrate in this next year?
Oh my. I really just try to do as many as possible. Like I really love audiobooks. I know I should branch out and do like commercials, and I've done a few commercials and stuff like that, but I really just love audiobooks. And I just signed with to be on the talent roster for an audiobook producer in Burbank, California. And I have my first book coming up where I go read in a studio. So I'm super excited, and hopefully that leads to more opportunities. But yeah, really, I try to read as many as possible in a month, in a year. No vacations.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. That's really exciting. The recording studio and
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
I'm excited.
Okay. I wondered too, there might be some other authors who are here or listening later who are interested in how the collaboration works between, you as a narrator and the author. And I don't know if you could talk a little bit on that. I'll just mention for us, we did a 50-50 royalty split, which is just an amazing opportunity, especially for indie authors, where there's no upfront costs. And what happens is then a narrator like you come along and say, okay, this looks like an interesting project. I listened to your what do you call it, audition, and say, okay, you're great for the part. And then from there, we agree to the contract. You do the recording. I approve it, and it goes for sale, and we do 50-50 split, which is great. Do you plan to keep doing that type of an arrangement in the future, or would you rather kind of branch off and do more of the be with a recording studio?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to. I don't think I'll be able to fill up all my time at a recording studio. So I'll definitely stick around on ACX, and yeah, if the project has potential, I would definitely consider a royalty share. And like in all the classes I've been to, they say, yeah, don't rule out royalty share because it can have real dividends for the narrator and the author.
Okay, well, I kind of asked my main questions here, and I was just wondering if there's anything I haven't touched on that you wanted to add about either the process or just, I guess on a personal level, I was curious too about do you personally like listening to audiobooks, or do you prefer reading, or do you find yourself reading out loud if you're reading a paperback book just out of habit?
Yeah, sometimes if something's really hard to get through, I'll read it out loud to myself, but I haven't done that since college. I love audiobooks. I have my audible.com subscription. I get a new credit every month, and I have my Bluetooth, and it's on my phone, and when I'm driving, that's the main thing here in LA, it's horrible traffic. So I fill up all my time listening to audiobooks, or if I'm just cleaning, it's all audiobooks. I rarely have time to read for pleasure because I'm always reading for work. So I love audiobooks so much. And it's great research for me to learn how the pros do it. Yeah.
That's a good point, too, about so many people who have long commutes and how it's a great way to pass the time. I have to admit that, actually listening to your recording of Aurora Sky Vampire, this is the first audiobook I've ever listened to. I've always loved paper books, and I don't know, but I've seen this as a growing trend, and it makes sense to me. And actually, I had a really fun time listening to the book. I mean, I was laughing out loud and just kind of chuckling to myself. And since you are not only a narrator, but you use Audible, you have an account and listen to audiobooks, I don't know if you have any observations about trends or things you've heard from friends or people who are listening to them, and why this is kind of picking up now, why audiobooks are becoming popular.
I mean, I've read a few articles, and yeah, they're becoming so much more popular. I guess it's just because we're busier, and everybody wants to be able to read more, and this is an easy way to just be like, I'm reading a book, you know, and I'm not really doing much work. I'm not turning pages and there's not been a lot of research on how that's different from reading, because it definitely is, and the stories enter our minds in a different way, and our retention is probably different, but there haven't been a lot of studies on that yet. And I think they're popular because more and more big names have started reading audiobooks. Like, so many like A-listers are reading audiobooks now, and I guess that's another incentive for people to listen.
Definitely. I am definitely interested in listening to more just after hearing yours. And I wanted to mention to everyone too that Em and I have been talking about possibly having her narrate the next two Aurora Sky books, book 2, Northern Bites, and book 3, Bad Blood. I think we'll kind of see how things go with book 1. So hopefully people listen to that and recommend it to friends. And I would love to hear more of those read by Em. I think that I'm going to maybe open it up. I'm not sure how many questions we're going to have. I see maybe one right now. But I wanted to thank Em for sharing an inside look into audiobook narrating with us, and see if we have some questions for her. And make sure to post any questions now if you would like to, if there's anything that you would like to know while she's here with us. So let me start. I see a question from Shelley, and I'm not sure. I'm going to see if I can see if I'm like wording this question right. It says, what book do you most want to put to audio? So I'm wondering if what maybe Shelley's asking is if you could, maybe I'm totally wrong here, but if you could read any book in audiobook, like do the recording for it, which book would it be? Maybe I'm totally wrong. I apologize if I'm reading that incorrectly.
Well, what I would love to see is, or hear, is a full cast Harry Potter. But I know I could never do it because I'm American, obviously. But I would love to have like some part in that, like casting or something, because yeah, so much was lost in the movies, I thought, and I would love to see something like they did with the Chronicles of Narnia. They made like a radio program, and I thought that was really cool with sound effects and stuff. And yeah, I would love to be involved in some Harry Potter production of the same nature.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of practice having read that to your sisters.
Yeah. Wish I was British. What can I say?
Okay, well, it looks pretty quiet on the question front, so if there's any more to come up just in the last minute here, I think I'll wrap up and we can let you finish packing and moving. So I hope that people will come check this out later too, because it's just been really interesting. I love a chance to get to hear from the actual, like, see you face to face and like get to hear from the actual person about the process. It just is really cool to get to hear that. So thank you again for that insider look. And maybe one more question. No, okay, I did get that question right. Thank you, Shelley. Well, Shelley Custer, I want to thank her too, who came here. I asked if she could volunteer to keep track of questions and stuff for the audiobook giveaway, but you know what? I think that I am just going to actually give the audiobook to Shelley because she's just been great. She's volunteered and participated, so thank you so much, Shelley. And for people watching this later, if you have friends or who enjoy paranormal, sci-fi type things, new adult, mature young adult, be sure to recommend Aurora Sky Vampire Hunter, narrated by Em Eldridge, to your friends, and that would be really great. Thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend, and catch you later. Thanks, Em.
Oh, thank you.